coming up next, we are going to chat with, led by TechCrunch's John Schieber. We're going to chat with Wayne Sutton of Change Catalyst, GitHub's Nicole Sanchez, Yelp's head of diversity and inclusion, Rachel Williams, and Twilio's head of diversity, LaFawn Davis. They're going to talk about diversity in Silicon Valley. Let's bring them up. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
Hey, y'all. Wow, we have such a great panel. I'm so stoked to talk to these folks. First of all, thank y'all for coming out for the event. We certainly appreciate it here at TechCrunch. So the title of this panel is Why Silicon Valley Struggles with Diversity. Why Silicon Valley struggles with diversity. And the question, my initial question to y'all is whether that is the right question to ask initially, whether that's the way to start to talk about this issue. And I think we'll just go down the panel. Rachel, if you want to take it first.
Picking on me, huh?
Yeah, well, you know.
All right, well, I think the question is a valid question to ask, but I think it ignores hundreds of years of systematic racial inequality, gender inequality, homophobia, xenophobia, and all the like. And to put the onus only on Silicon Valley is really a little bit unfair. So that question gets me a little riled up.
LaFawn, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys think Silicon Valley has a diversity problem? So I feel like we've had this discussion over and over and over again. It's obvious that Silicon Valley has a diversity problem. And I think we're looking at it wrong. We're looking at it company by company. We're comparing big companies to small companies and consumer companies to platform companies, and we're doing it wrong. And so instead of having the conversation about what each company is doing or what each line of business is doing, we should be talking about this systemically.
Right. Okay. Nicole?
Well, I don't have much more to add to that. I think for those of you who know me, I've been working on diversity in tech since 1999, and the idea that we have a room full of people who are interested in talking about this is very promising. But to me, it is, like Rachel said, it is the legacy of this country. We were founded on slavery and stolen land and genocide, and Silicon Valley alone isn't going to be able to upend that. But where it shows up for us in things like anti-black racism, which we experience and witness every single day in our tech companies, those are the systems we have to not be afraid to talk about and not be afraid to use phrases like white supremacy and how it shows up in the boardroom. And that, to me, is a much more interesting conversation that you could take to the financial sector or to media or to the auto industry and really figure out how we're going to upend this for the country and ultimately for the world overall.
Now, Wayne, we talk about white supremacy, and that's clearly like a national problem, not like or Nicole talked about white supremacy. Yeah. I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth but mine. And
I said it.
But so if that's an issue that seems to be a sort of national issue, and this notion that Silicon Valley should sort of cure itself seems to me to not get at the broader issue of the systemic aspects of this that go deeper than just not being able to hire enough people of diverse backgrounds. And I wonder if you have some thought. I mean, and this goes to something about the opportunities, I think, that the economic benefits of being in the tech industry and being an entrepreneur and having access to capital create is not just a Silicon Valley issue, as I think some of our previous panelists on some other panels might have alluded to, but rather like a national issue. And you might have some thoughts about that. So I'm hoping you can share something. Yeah. Was there anything in there you can tease out that was a question?
Yeah, I heard you try to put white supremacy in my mouth.
Right. That's why I told you I would take that one.
Stop right there.
Right.
But no, we was talking about the previous panel in the back about what Michael Siebel and Nicole and Laura was talking about in terms of everybody need to move to Silicon Valley and what does that mean? And I strongly disagree with it, right? And I moved here 5 years ago from the South, from North Carolina, and I think that's it's a constant culture and mindset that we have in Silicon Valley that is going to, in Silicon Valley world, is going to get disrupted in the next 5 to 10 years. There's so many underrepresented entrepreneurs who are going to, I believe, is going to launch successful companies in the next 5 to 10 years without Silicon Valley money. The wealth gap, is going to change in terms of who's creating technology startups, who's receiving the capital, who's getting funded without VC and angel from this area, and Silicon Valley's going to have a wake-up call, right? You know, and then also going to the previous question, I like to let's focus on the why, and we have all these systematic issues, but at the end of the day, we have to talk about us as human beings and be respectful. And if I can have a magic pill or put a chip in everyone, it'll be teach people empathy. Right? I mean, we can just create the solution of empathy, and it will solve a lot of problems.
Anybody want to fund that?
Yeah, no, y'all go ahead. Y'all just start chatting. I mean, this is fun.
Okay. No, absolutely agree. I'd like to talk about, instead of D&I, diversity and inclusion, I like talking about empathy and civility, right? Like, we have to bring civility back into the workforce. We have to bring civility back into the Valley. And to me, we should be having that conversation more than just, you know, why do we have a problem? What do the numbers look like? Why can't we recruit? Where's the pipeline? I said it.
Right.
I'm not going to touch the pipeline question right at this moment, but I do want to talk about the fact that I think when we started this conversation, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but Nicole, you've been on it since '99, so you, we started the conversation off wrong. Everybody was doing unconscious bias training, which gave everybody the out, right? We're all racist, we're all sexist, we're all homophobic, so well, nothing to do. I think we started the conversation off wrong, and we're still at the same place. We haven't seen a lot of movement, and that's because we didn't start the conversation off by including white men or including the dominant group. I love this audience. I love the people that are here, but you all opted in because you all are interested in this topic. I want a room full of white, male, cisgendered, straight CEOs, venture capitalists in this room to help talk about this issue, because they are the ones that are going to help move the needle. Whenever I'm talking to any of my employees about successful movements, because let's get this straight, this is a movement. And the successful movement that I last remember was the civil rights movement. Yes, Martin Luther King was at the head of it. Yes, Malcolm X, and it takes both of those types of personalities, the Malcolm X and the Martin Luther King, to get things done. But at the end of the day, it was Lyndon B. Johnson who actually signed something, right? So it's working across the line and working with each other in order to get this done. We can't do it by ourselves.
I have the privilege sometimes of sitting with VCs, CEOs of other companies, quietly, behind closed doors, and to really get somebody to open up about their fear around this topic is, I wish it's an experience we could all have, for those of us who haven't, because we're dealing with humans who are petrified of making mistakes, because every mistake they made gets tweeted. It's 140 characters worth of a mistake, and then and I get that, because we need to call people out on their stuff. But when you really get down to these personal conversations and you realize that a 50-something-year-old white VC who is on every Midas list in the world says to you, why are the black people in my company so angry at me? Which has happened to me. I've been asked this question more than once, and I go, oh, you don't have like a basic vocabulary for this, and you don't know who you can ask in safety. You don't know how to say things like, I had a VC say to me, well, I figure I'm going to invest in girls coding, and then we'll get everything else after that. And I say, well, first of all, I think you need to be clear. You're talking about your daughter's school. We've all seen this research. So you're talking about predominantly wealthy, predominantly white girls in the South Bay or in the peninsula, and they're learning how to code. That doesn't naturally lend itself to suddenly finding black trans engineers in your company. That's not a straight line from your wealthy white daughter to TransHack, which is one of my favorite organizations in the Valley that works with transgender and non-binary technologists who have a hard time coming together for things like hackathons, showing up and knowing whether or not they're safe. That is not a direct line. And the interventions needed to get from your daughter and all the support systems around her and folks who show up for TransHack is very, very different.
Well, so that gets to an interesting point that I certainly wanted to talk to y'all about. In fact, it's one of my questions, so there we go. Which is how broadly y'all think about your mandate within your organizations, or whether the mandate should actually be to talk to your organizations about getting out of their own space and encouraging education programs, encouraging diversity programs broadly at a very sort of root level, where you're going to elementary schools around the community or around communities and saying, look, we are a multi-billion-dollar, knock on wood for all of y'all's companies, corporation that is that has touch points with the entire country. And we can't just think about things locally or in terms of like what we can do at a college level to improve diversity. We need to go down to like elementary schools and start funding programs at a basic level that encourage outreach. Sorry, that was a rant, not a question. But
where was the question in that?
Well, so the question is, how broadly do y'all think, whether y'all agree with me basically that that's what needs to get done? No, whether that's how you think about the mandate, whether the mandate is for inclusion within the company or within the broader community for the company, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Does that question make sense now? Yeah. Go ahead. I mean, Wayne, do you want to take it?
Yeah. For us, we're not a well-funded startup like a lot of people in this room and my fellow panelists. We're a team of 5 full-time with about 7 volunteers, and we look at we focus on inclusion. We focus on making a inclusive tech ecosystem. And when the numbers were released in 2014, we saw that everybody was focused on primarily STEM, and then the youth, and then women, mostly white women. And also we saw that a lot of companies wasn't connecting the dots, how that affected their business and how D&I actually affected every part of the organization. So we mapped out the ecosystem. We put it in 5 areas: education, workplace, entrepreneurship, policy, and ecosystem. And then we had our pre-election and post-election plans for 2017. And post-election said we need to get outside of the bubble. And so we're focused on now going to 14 different cities, 2 overseas, and talking about inclusion, talking about empathy, talking about jobs, talking about innovation, and talking about tech. And right, so we're going in places like Detroit, where it's 80% black, and they're like, we're not the minority here,
right? We're
the majority,
right?
But you're the minority in tech,
right?
We're going to places like Minneapolis, we're going to Atlanta, we're going to New York, and of course here in the.
You got it?
Who was that? Is that you?
Sorry.
Okay.
But what we found.
Uh-oh. Yeah, there's a hand mic. We can share.
Here, there you go.
Lastly, but what we found out through all this work, and we do some consulting with some of the companies, is that a lot of companies want to approach us, say, look, help us with recruiting, help us with finding the best great black talent, right? That's what they ask for. We say, well, what about your culture overall? Are you creating an inclusive culture? What's your retention like?
Right.
And so that's some of our challenges, some of the work we try to do.
Right.
So at GitHub, I'm really proud to work on a team of 11, which is kind of unheard of, the size of our team, and we're still fighting for it to grow. I have 2 of my team members right here, sitting here, Jen Arguello and Bianca Escalante, wave your hands. As the social impact team, our job is to do both and, because we can't do one without the other. It would be disingenuous to recruit black folks and say, but we do nothing in the community outside of our company. And that by the same token, if we go into the community, Bianca runs a great partnership with Code Tenderloin right here in San Francisco, and they say, well, if you're our partner, do any of us have a shot at a job in your company? And if we say no, well, then it's a huge hypocrisy, and the whole thing is window dressing. So for us, it's both and. Internal to the company, building inclusive culture, and external, engaging as many partners on their terms around their missions as we possibly can, and bringing money to the table. This is a really important key thing that I think everybody from companies need to know, is that this costs money. It's not pay to play, but if you want to invest in startups, you also need to be investing in social startups that are in your neighborhood, that are trying to get the doors open for their folks to be entrepreneurs, to be inventors, to be hobbyists, not just the next whatever Mark Zuckerberg, because that's the wrong model.
Right.
I think, oh, go ahead. No, you don't. Okay. So it can't be one or the other.
Right.
It has to be everything. And that's the hard part about this space, right? You kind of have to hit all of the pieces, otherwise you're failing in some way. And I always believe that whatever the company or organization, whenever you go public with what your goals are, what you're trying to do, you're always going to get yelled at, right? You're always going to get yelled at. So you just have to strive to do the right thing.
Right.
And we've been talking about creating, cultures of inclusion and civility and empathy and all of those things. I've been in the D&I space in tech for over a decade, and I have seen companies spend a lot of money getting people in the door, and a lot of recruiting programs, and writing big checks, and getting people in the door, but it's a lie.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right? It's a lie. And so those same people that you spend millions of dollars to get into the door and train and all that kind of good stuff, walk right out of the door.
That's right.
Very shortly thereafter. And so I think we have to do all of that. We have to talk about all of that. It's not fluffy, right? A lot of people think, start talking about inclusion and culture and all that, it's fluffy, but it's not.
Right.
If you don't feel like you belong somewhere, And I'm going to use an old adage, right? You guys have all heard this. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance, right? But belonging is knowing all the songs, right? Like singing like you're in the shower. That's what belonging feels like. And if you don't feel that wherever you are, you're not going to stay. So we have to really get out of this notion that Silicon Valley is where everybody wants to be. That might not be my kind of party. Now, I'm from the Bay, and I'm very proud of it, but it might not be my kind of party. And so we have to get out of that notion that everybody wants to be here.
Right.
I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
Three of them just really quickly, because I do think it's a step process. I don't know if you can do both and do them both successfully. For us at Yelp, we've really been focusing on internal first and creating that, because we are our platform is about reviews, and I personally don't want the reviews and the whisper network within the Black community, the Hispanic community, the trans community to be not a place you want to go. So doing the work internally, and I'm going to be on this allyship, white man, ship train for a while, because I think the more work you do with that community, the dominant culture, the leaders in your company who are typically white men, to get them to understand their role in giving up their privilege, their power, and their position on behalf of others, then we can actually go out and do something. Because I say, like, I only have a team of 2, friend. Me, 50% of the team, of the Yelp diversity team, is sitting right on the stage.
Someone needs a phone call after this.
So I can't very well be like, let's go to go to Atlanta, let's go to Detroit, just me and my partner, right? And so I have to go, well, who am I going with? Who's with me?
Right.
Oh, okay, well, the troops aren't ready, so I have to get my troops ready, and that means...
Well, you have to train up people to become troops in this fight, right? I mean, that's part of it.
That's part of it.
And you can't do it all at once.
Right.
But you can't just focus on one area.
Right.
So if you only focus internally and that doesn't get out, so a lot of companies do a lot of great things, but don't tell the story effectively, then you're kind of working against yourself.
The way that I formulated it, or that I've thought about it as I think about these issues, is that you have to approach systemic problems systematically, right? Which is sometimes hard to do. It's really often very hard to do, because there are massive things that you're teasing out because they are systemic. One company, I just want to point this out, one company that I think has done a really good job, actually, and I berate them about many other things, is IBM, actually, which has done an amazing job, at least in the New York City community, and I think more broadly, at training young people of diverse backgrounds and trying to give them access to technology programs that will get them in the door, no matter what they want to do. And they provide, I just think that if y'all are looking for, and I know we said we wouldn't be prescriptive, but I'm going to be a little prescriptive, and I'm going to ask y'all to be a little prescriptive in the last minute and a half that we have on stage. But that's a program to look out for, what they've been doing around education. Now, just going down the list very quickly, like if y'all can think of one program that's been most successful for your organizations, or if one of y'all want to take it. I know, Nicole, you're looking at me like, no, do not do this to me. But just like, if there's something that you think has been effective in bringing people to the table, at least, to have the conversation, what is that? What does that look like? Wayne?
You want me to say?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm going to toot my own horn here. I strongly believe in the work that we're doing, because we focus on everyone: LGBTQIA, vets, people over the age of 40, African Americans, Latinos. At Change Catalyst, we focus on tech inclusion, and I strongly believe in the work we're doing.
I have a hard time with this question because, I mean, really, when you've studied it, and I now teach it at UC Berkeley at the Haas School of Business, it has so many twists and turns. But I will say that investing in the most marginalized folks in your company and making sure that they have the sense of belonging. So for us, it was our trans and non-binary GitHub employees, as well as our Black-to-Cats, self-named Black-to-Cats, because the Octocat is our logo, call themselves the Black-to-Cats. And there's crossover, right, in those two. It's really important. But to know that there is a safe in-group where they can talk about what the reality is about being at our company, and then feed that back into the system so that we don't repeat mistakes, has yielded a lot of benefit for us.
All right.
So I'll talk about something we just launched at Signal, which is our developer conference. What was that, last week? I don't know, time.
Yeah.
It's going too fast. But we announced that we just launched an apprenticeship program that we're calling Hatch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, woo! And we think this is really important because, Hatch is it's a 6-month apprenticeship program for people that are underrepresented in tech, for non-traditional technical backgrounds. So if you've gone through a 12-week boot camp, right? Those are the type of people that we're looking for. So I think job creation is really important, and taking folks that are not just marginalized within the industry, but also just have very different backgrounds, don't have the standard 4-year degree, don't come from a particular school, and creating the opportunities to actually land a real job, not a program where they just come and experience the company, right, have some lunch.
Visit.
But yeah, so they, you know, like real coding for real customers, sitting within teams, getting best practices and mentoring and all of that. And so we just launched that, and we look forward to, at least over the next 5 years, getting at least 100 apprentices through the program.
And Rachel, you're going to take us home. This is the last comment.
Yeah, I'm still on my executive train. So we have an executive diversity council at Yelp, and I think that has really helped me move the needle there. And it's not the CEO, which everybody thinks that's who needs to be at the table. Not at Yelp. It needs to be a group of other folks who are influencers inside of the company, and that is our director of training, our head of engineering, the folks who handle all of our sales employees, to get them to understand what the challenges are for their group of employees, and then that can trickle down.
And with that, I thank y'all for listening. Thank you for being on the panel. Appreciate it very much. Thank y'all.